pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will continue with a moment of silence. Great, thank you. All right, moving down then to additions to the agenda, which I do have one. I move to add an executive session to the agenda to discuss matters which would be deemed privileged by attorney-client relationship under TOMA. Is there a second? Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Motion carried. Thank you. You guys want to start with reports, or you want to do the FCCLA first? Okay. Let's start and jump ahead and get to the FCCLA. Thanks for coming, guys. We appreciate it. Tell us about your...
Do you want to start the screen?
Yeah, do you want to start the screen? So.
Sure, we can make room for you all over here. Come on.
Okay, so first off, we'd like to thank you guys for helping us go. We had a lot of fun. So this is us leaving. We had to wake up very, very, very early. Me and Olivia did not go to sleep that night, and it was not the funnest. But we got on a plane, and then got on another plane, and ended up in San Diego.
Luckily, we had no layovers.
Yes.
Or delays.
Yes, we did not.
We had our first general session. It's pretty fun. We saw like people from every state. And
We also got to see the national officers at this meeting, and there were some awards they announced. And yeah, and then right after this we had our Kansas meeting, and we got a pin from it. Got a lot of pins.
And we also got Kansas pins to trade with other states, and we'd like to give you guys one, because we had a lot of extras. But also at this general session, they did tell us we were one of the biggest states there, so that was kind of exciting. We were also one of the loudest when it came to training competitions.
So here, the next day we were there, we had star events, and these were some of the people who competed. We had almost all of our star events get at least top 10 or higher in the nation, which is really good. Meredith is here. It's one of those people. And here, so half of us had star events on the first day, and then half did workshops. And these were some of the workshops the other half of our people did.
So basically, you could go around to different booths, and they had like some sponsors there, and then they talked about leadership and other things you could do in FCCLA. So everyone kind of got to do their own thing for a couple of hours.
And the picture of Paxton and Emma there, that's them with a bunch of their pins on a lanyard that we have. Here's knowledgeable. This was our favorite part of the trip. We ended up getting top 8 in the nation, and that middle picture, that's with the Kansas State president. He came to watch our final match. And then this picture, Miss Schrader took us out for coffee after we got done.
We were also the only Kansas team to make it to Knowledgeable, which was pretty exciting.
And then this picture here, we met some people from Texas in a Subway for lunch, and then we ended up playing them in the quarterfinal round.
Yeah, and they beat us pretty bad.
Yes, they did.
They were super good.
They were very good. And then here is the day 2 star events. Grace is here. Yeah. Yep, she's the only one in this school. Our junior high is very good there. And then here's our workshops from day 2. We had a lot of these. Me, Olivia, Kara, and Justin got a tobacco prevention pin from one of the workshops.
Yeah, we like to walk around and get all the free stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And here's one of the Kansas sponsored things that we did. We went to the zoo. It's very big. A lot of
Yeah, we
walking
were
that
not
day.
prepared for how big it was. It was a lot of walking.
And here's another one of the Kansas sponsored things. This cruise had every member from Kansas on it. We had a dinner and then we met some of Jacob's Purehead friends.
Yeah, I met a lot of friends.
This was also sponsored by Purehead, so Jacob and I got to run some games on the cruise, and then they also fed us dinner while we were there.
And then here's some of the fun stuff that we did. We went to the beach for a little bit and we got a lot of good food.
Got to experience In-N-Out.
Mm-hmm,
A lot of people's first time.
Very good.
There's a picture of us on the subway.
Yeah. Got to go to the beach.
The haunted house.
Yeah, so we went to a
The
haunted
haunted
house. Had an administrator tell us some of her ghost stories. And here's our lovely chaperones who went with us. I'd like to thank them as well. They made the trip a lot of fun. Again, we'd like to thank you guys for letting us go, and any of the chaperones have anything they want to say, add, or Meredith or Grace, do you guys want to say anything? Do you guys have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank you kids for going and representing not just Kansas, but Muncie County and landing in the top 10 in the nation. That's an incredible feat in and of itself, but to come from our unique little community, that's amazing. We're so impressed with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's all we have.
You all are welcome to stick around if you'd like, but if you want, you can leave now too.
Thank you.
We understand how fun this can be.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on then with reports. Principal Alder.
Just like to report a couple things with our building. We're having some issues with the building, getting it ready to go, but I think we'll get those root problems resolved. Spanish class this year. Spanish is going to be an online course. It's going to be offered through a Zoom 2 days a week through Greenbush. They'll be providing those services for us, and then we'll have a proctor in the classroom with them. And that'll be Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. We were unable to get any applicants for that Spanish position, so this was our best alternative at this time. We'll be pursuing one, perhaps maybe at Christmas time, maybe a December graduate might be available. We don't know at this time yet, we'll see. We're also too have a couple individuals that are probably going to be off campus, trying to make up some credits and continue to graduate, stay on course to graduate, but doing it more like basically it's online. And so we've met with that family and set up a plan to keep them on track and keep them on pace to graduate as well. We're looking at a couple changes to our homecoming. I don't want to announce those too much yet because things aren't locked in stone, but we're looking at kind of changing around some things with homecoming this year and looking at a couple different options to try to improve participation and accommodate more people, hopefully. So we'll cross our fingers on that one. Practice, I'll let Jaron talk about athletics. He's got some information. I think he's actually shared some with you going with that. We do have a counselor on board. She's been in the building a lot already and getting things going, and we're kind of excited about that opportunity for her to get to grow and help us out too. So at the junior high level, the building looks great for the most part. They've done a good job down there getting everything ready to go. We have a little bit different because we were unable to fill the math position. Mrs. Capone will be teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math this year. And then Mrs. Hobbenstein will be teaching the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade language arts. Miss Ogden will have all the sciences. And then we're splitting up some of the social studies. So we're still able to maintain that schedule and keep everybody busy and still keep our electives. So everybody came together and we worked on a schedule, got it built, and I think it's going to work out pretty good. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions. I have some passes. I did hand out some of these passes to you guys. These are our local passes. If you don't get one. And these get you into the local events, not the away games. Is there any questions I might be able to answer? No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert?
Is it doctor or Mr.?
It's Mr.
Okay,
Chavo is how.
Mr. Shaw.
Other than being very excited about getting started and being here, it's gone really well this week. I've seen a lot of our teachers coming in, so met a number of them, and it's just a wonderful staff. At Alma, we don't really have much physical issues going on with the building, except for the parking lot, which we're getting worked out, the weeds and things. We've got a new teacher there in 5th grade, Joyce Eckelberry. I'm going to say the last name wrong, so I'll just say Joyce for now. She's getting settled. We had to move some desks. She wanted desks instead of tables, so we made some switches with some things we had in storage. And she's getting a teacher desk out of storage here, I think, in the next couple of days, and she's going to be set up. I know Erin has been here at the end of last year, but she's still relatively new, but she's doing a really good job as a secretary, kind of getting a feel for the job. And let's see here. I'm sorry, I got my list. I want to make sure I don't forget anything. Oh yeah, probably 2 things. Vacancy-wise, it looks like we may be down 1 para for SPED, and I've talked to Deb North in Wamego with the cooperative about getting that filled, so we should be working on that, hopefully setting up interviews in the next few days. And as of today, our custodian is no longer going to be with us. She's moving to Colorado to be closer with family, but I've already talked to people about getting that set up right away too, and making sure we're covered with our duties until we do get somebody. So that's kind of where we're at with Alma. And then with Maple Hill, we do have some physical issues. We still have carpet that was supposed to be laid today, but as of 3:45, it did not happen. So I'll be getting on that first thing in the morning to find out why and how quickly we can get that done. I want Miss Rosine, and I hope I'm saying her name right, to be able to get to be in her room and get it the way she wants it to be. We have a brand new secretary that we hired over the summer, and she's also doing a really good job. Feeling like she's swimming underwater a little bit, but she's got a really good work ethic, and it's working out really well. We were able to hire a 1st grade teacher, so we no longer will have a K-1 split class. And as of the last few days, they've been building a wall in between that room, which it had been taken down to allow for that bigger K-split class. He was painting it and spackling it today, and said it should be done tomorrow by about 10:30. And that's everything I had on this. And that is all I have for you right now. If you have any questions, let me know.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Thompson.
Okay, so we've added a new bus to the fleet, which is great, and we were able to finally get a transit van after a few tries, which was really nice. Aside from that, we got all of our buses ready for DOT inspection tomorrow. All teachers' cars and faculty vehicles, as well as buses, have been taken down for mechanical inspection prior to DOT inspection. And we've essentially taken care of various parts from alternators, belts, parking brake sensors, lift switches, just various things. To get those ready to go, we're getting the last of them washed and detailed tonight, and we'll be ready to roll in the morning. Aside from that, trying to make a small switch with a small portion of our fleet to electric. We have a grant available that we do qualify for.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll get you some focus time a little bit later in the agenda just to talk about.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yes.
Well, then I'll come back to it.
Okay,
so
very
that
good.
works.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Just wanted to add a quick couple thing to the iPads update. I mentioned that when I written the report that we were still waiting on like half of the shipment to arrive. Well, we did get that at the end of the week, so we've been worked hard to get caught up with what we had at the end of last week. So started this week, we've been working on this second half and should be on track. Got our media techs over here in the library. We've all been working on it, kind of going through some refresher training together. I do think at this time we are probably still down one media tech that chose not to take the position at the junior high, but we are probably on track to have it mostly finished by the end of the week. Then can finish up any remaining stuff over the weekend and hopefully should be good to go for the start of school.
Thank you. Mr. Weisar.
The only additions I would make to my written report is practices do start this next week, Monday. And so we are all set, ready for that. And then just an update on the wet bulb glow thermometer. I did pick that up today at Acacia office at a meeting this morning, so we have that. Just need to do some settings on it and get it ready to go. But we do have that. So, and then if there's any other questions about the report.
No, thanks for coming. And then Mr. Blanton's not here and Ed Tech Services aren't here, so. All right, great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate all that information. Sounds like you guys are on top of it and time's coming short, so. Next then, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right. Dr. Hart, goal setting.
All right, good afternoon, evening, I guess, right? So, kind of exciting to start your school year off with kids. Similar to the building principals and directors that they reported, similar to the board, you guys start the new year as well. And so to do that, certainly we always offer, when we do a search, we offer a goal setting opportunity. We think it's important that you set goals. We think it's important that you have kind of a clear focus of what your expectation is of your new superintendent and your new superintendent view. We feel strong enough about that we guarantee it. And so if we don't, obviously we take a little bit of pride in that, and we want to make sure that we spend some time tonight. We're going to be here, shorten this up just a little bit, just at the discretion of Justin and Troy a little bit, and focus on what are those short-term goals for year one. And so let me get hooked up here real quick. Is there an easy way to do this?
Can you airplay it?
Probably. Can't be that easy, can it?
16 minutes.
Usually never works quite that smooth, so.
Then you can sit down.
You're gonna save me, aren't you? Perfect, thank you. Okay. Hey, real quick, I don't know if I know everybody, so we have at least one of the members, is that correct? Or at least one I haven't met before?
Yeah.
Yep, so I'm Britton Hart from the School Board Association. I supported your board, I guess it was, trying to think now, February in that area for superintendent search. Did a screening, did obviously interviews, and obviously we're lucky to have Mr. Pitch here. So part of tonight is really for you to start thinking as a team. We call this a family and a little bit of a marriage. And to have a healthy marriage, we need to spend some time together. And more importantly, we need to talk about some of those things we have in common. Just like your agenda tonight, a lot of things going to come at you. But we really need to start thinking about what are those short-term goals that we are going to evaluate and expect our new superintendent to do in year one. That should be reciprocated in the evaluation this year, just like all the other rules and regs that the board follows. Superintendent will be evaluated twice during that time span. And so I'll give you a tool before I leave tonight so we can kind of walk through that. That first evaluation is due at the end of, at the beginning of November and also the beginning of April. And that's something that the board president will kind of help navigate and kind of walk you through. But as we start tonight, it should be partnered up with somebody, so maybe you two gentlemen can get a little bit closer together. But I want you to think about, figuratively speaking, sorry about that. You should have picked your seats wisely. Yeah. There's a reason I'm walking around this room and not staying right up there. Okay? But I want you to think about this picture up here. It's kind of fitting as you start a new year. You're really starting a new team. And so you've been lucky with the past superintendent to have somewhat of a relationship that, to be honest, worked. And that you had mutual respect for one another. And so as we start to do this, I want you to think about this picture in the relationship of the board and the superintendent team. Okay, if those two groups function at a high level, you're gonna have that opportunity, if you will, in a sports analogy, win a lot of ball games. Okay, if not, you're gonna be the New York Jets. Okay, and so if you're a New York Jets fan, I'm sorry if there's anybody in here, but they don't have that chemistry. They don't have that culture to be able to put a winning product out. Your winning product happen to be students and staff. And so I want you to think about these three questions. And Jerome, you and your partner here are going to take that first one. What role do I contribute as a team member, illustrated by the child on this leadership tree? So pick a child, pick a representative of what you feel like you do as an individual teammate. You two ladies, take that second question, what child best represents the team collectively? And then Justin, if you guys will take the last question. Which one, where would you like to be in the future? I will preface this is the only touchy-feely activity that we have. All the rest of them is just meat and potatoes, okay? So this is kind of our icebreaker, all right? So you guys take Thursday. Till we work with the board, so I'm like, no. All right, we ready? Or you need a little bit more time? You need a little more time? No, these are just for you to use. Don't be taking with you.
Use no pen.
We didn't go with the deluxe package.
Oh, that's why we got black and white.
We didn't think it was a white.
I would love to be on Hill Ranch.
Oh, no, you wouldn't.
Okay, I'm going to pull you back together. So let's start with we're going to start with the first one here. So as you think about your individual role and how you contribute to this team, which one did you guys talk about that this child maybe best represents your individual role? And
Well,
why?
the first thought, the one on the ground, hits me.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I'd like to thank, I don't know what the other thinks, for hopefully can steady the ladder there so someone can climb.
Okay. Jerome, anything you want to add?
Good job.
Just moral support, which is kind of fitting to the latter, right? So your role, in many cases, if I paraphrase you, is to make sure you provide enough support and guidance so that some people can potentially get a little bit higher, right? Is that what I heard you say? Good. How about you ladies, when you think about what best represents the team currently, not maybe where you want to be, but what about now?
Talked about several of them actually. One of them, like Donnie said, was the child with the head spinning at times, we felt like. But just given where we're at, I think with the different projects and bonds and things that we're trying to do, it's almost sometimes like we're the little girl that's clinging to the tree because we're just trying to hold everything together.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I don't know, Kelly gives something different.
I think we kind of discussed how at different points in time throughout the year, we could be any number of those at any point. So, yeah, the little girl thinking.
Good, thank you. And last group, if you think about where you want to end up, so we've got a new superintendent, got some potentially to pass a bond, do some new things here. Where do you see yourself moving forward?
Well, we talked about the boy on top holding the top part of the ladder. I mean, as they support the bottom, as the board supports the school district, and we're trying to climb for new highs and get our kids to be higher up on the ladder. We take the ladder so far, and then our kids take that ladder and keep on going. And so he's helping kind of steady the top part of the ladder while all the things down below get put back together, bonds and lots of employee changeover.
Good.
Those types of things.
Good, thank you. Dr. Pitch, anything you'd add to, as you think about maybe your role and the relationship you have with the board?
But I just want to look at that sketch, all roles are critical, and without each of those roles playing their part, the system couldn't function properly. So I just think about the interlocking of the sprockets in the machine.
So some great research around the function and the high functioning of the board. So the more that you spend time talking about student success, one of those little steps tonight, maybe you don't think of it that way, but sharing some of your meeting with the kids, talking about goals, adopting policy. The more that you can do that, the higher you can get up on this tree, so to speak, when you think about your student success. That's your main role as a board, is to ensure that your students get and need and really have anything they can to be most successful. So that'll be kind of our focus tonight. Again, this will be a little bit abbreviated. We really want to make sure that you as a board are on the same team with your superintendent. Be honest, probably your first meeting, you probably didn't spend a lot of time talking about that, about, hey, what do I expect of Dr. Pitch and what does he expect of us? And so we want to take just a little bit of time, and we think it's important to be able to do so. So we're going to focus on these two areas. Typically, we focus on the team and growing of that team, okay? But we're going to highlight the expectations that you have of each other, and then the expectations and the goals that we have moving forward for this first year, okay? So Michelle handed out, and we'll cover before we leave, is just a real simple down and dirty evaluation. Justin, in your tenure here, have you guys used a particular tool or anything to evaluate the superintendent?
We haven't, not anything specific like this. Maybe you did. Okay.
This is really,
Not maybe this one, but.
not to trivialize it, but this is a really, really basic one. And I believe strong in doing something basic, because a lot of times, your role again is to support kids, policy, budget. And so all the academia stuff that are thrown in some of those other ones just really are a lot of words. And so how do we keep it simple based on what the board wants? It's the board's vision. And so if superintendent can carry out the vision, hey, we're doing well. If he can't, then we need to let him know. And if he's not, we need to reassess our goals. So that's where we're going to spend time tonight. So I want you to think about this quote here and how it relates to your future. Okay? So lots of exciting things. I will challenge you, the biggest change that you have in front of you right now is sitting right here. Bonds are important, success are important, but the biggest change we have in this community, in this district right now, is a new superintendent. And for many of you, probably doesn't feel that way because you were in on the hiring process. You got to meet him, you got to put him around, take him around the district, and now you're starting to feel familiar. But everybody else, for the most part, is pretty new. You know, some of these people are new. And so we can't underestimate that. But I want you to think about this quote with your shoulder partner, and how does that impact the success of your district moving forward? So just take a moment and talk with your neighbor. Well, every board's a little different, you're right. Some are easier than others. So, what do you think? Are you guys, what do you think about this culture?
Seen it happen.
Justin, kick us off here, because this feels like maybe somewhat of a little bit of a
Thank you.
tough situation even.
Well, I mean, you can employ all the strategies to be successful in the world. If you have a negative culture, if you have a negative aspect, if you don't work at changing the culture first, your strategy will never be successful. And so with the amount of change that we have here, we have a culture, and even the board has a culture that maybe needs to change a little bit with Dr. Pitch. And so,
How many years you been on the board?
6.
I don't know if you ever heard this, but if the board sneezes, the district will catch a cold. And so it's kind of trivial, kind of simple, right? But the board manipulates every single thing that happens in this district, good, bad, or different. And so what would you guys add to that?
Culture is going to impact everything. If we want student success, then we have to have a culture that is conducive to that with our staff, because if our staff are happy, then they teach better and the kids learn better. And it's just a trickle-down effect from the top down.
You know, this is very fitting in your house. I've been married 23 years maybe, and I've never had any luck telling my wife to change her behavior. Just show your hands if you've had luck changing your spouse's behavior. So, oh wait, nobody raised their hand, did they? So this is so pivotal for you and you only.
Are we on TV?
You know? Exactly. Hey, we need to take a revote. But it's so important when you think about this team. We travel all across the state. There's always somebody sitting at this table going, you know what, Justin would be a little better board member. We have a perfect board. Well, guess what? I can't tell Justin how to do things and how to be better. That's up to him. But what I can do as a husband or a person that sits on a teammate, I can model for myself. And that will influence the team. And that's why you have 7, because 6 others of you can manipulate that and function at a high level. And so that's why this culture piece is so important. So as we think about this tonight, I want to open up, and we're going to go right to goals here. But there's 3 types of conflict that are going to happen right here. And it happens all the time, and it's how you deal with that will impact your culture. So if we allow poor behavior at the board table, that's climate. Okay? If that climate continues, that forms your culture. Okay, so if every time I open my mouth, Justin interrupts me and he's disrespectful, that'll be the culture of the board. That'll be the culture of our behavior. But if he says, hey, you know what? We're talking about this topic, I haven't heard from you. I haven't heard from you. Let's hear your voice. And then let's make a motion. That starts to form the culture that you have. But when we do have conflicts, there's going to be 3 of them. These are very basic, almost elementary, if you wish. But the first one is data. So again, compare it to a marriage. Oh, my wife didn't know I was working tonight. Oh, you're going to be home late now, honey. That's interesting. Okay, first week of school. Nice idea, right? And so automatically she didn't have that information. If you think about a board member, does anybody like coming in knowing that you have less information than somebody else? That's a little bit tough to swallow sometimes, right? And so how does the superintendent, the board president, how do we make sure everybody, if one person knows, everybody knows? The second is values, and values have been tested more than ever over this last 4 to 5 years. People coming to the table thinking, you know, the ideology is different. That's good. That is no problem, and we want that. That's why there's 7 individuals and not just one. But when we share those values, we got to respect each other to make sure that's okay. Mask, big deal, right? Obviously, for a lot of our boards are. Nobody was right, nobody was wrong, but how do we make sure that we respect that decision and those values, if you will, as we're talking about those things here at the table. And the last thing, which sometimes is hard for people, folks, I'm a relational person. It's all about the relationships. It really is. If you don't like each other, okay, and if you don't want to enjoy each other's company and do what's best for kids, it might be a little painful. It might be tough. That's where those relationships come in. How do you mend some of those fences? How do you build some of those back? How do you get closer together as a team? Not, hey, I'm going to have you over just let's have steak dinner. No, but how do we get close enough as relationships to make good decisions? I want you to talk again with your partner. What are some of those things as we move on to goals that if we allow as conflicts to happen, what are potential on maybe some of your other teams out in your businesses, so Gary County, what are some of those things that you've experienced before that have destroyed, possibly hurt that team in the past? Are there other things that we haven't talked about, some other actions that potentially would derail us from doing our work there? Another 15 seconds, finish up your thoughts. So kick us off here. What are some of those actions that destroy, potentially teams you've been on before, not necessarily this board, but what are some of those things that potentially erode from the goals, what we're about ready to talk about? Okay, so integrity, right? Okay, follow through. Am I hearing you say? Okay. What else? Thank you.
Just professionalism. When we're in this environment, it may not be your best friend, but you still have to be professional enough to get along with everybody else.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because both these are things that you would say are attributes of teams that lack success. You know, for example, the New York Jets. And the Chiefs have been there, and now they're trying to get back to there. And the small things that people take for granted, like what two you just mentioned, kind of big. They start to create this wedge, right? And at times we start to kind of move away from where our focus is because it's more about me. Good. How about you, folks?
We talked about accountability and how accountability is a two-way street. And we have a set of rules, but rules without accountability don't really make much sense. and understanding of specific duties. If he doesn't, if understanding expectations. If we don't understand what expectations he would have of us or we would have of our district, then how can we meet those? So.
You know, I challenge you, you're not gonna be able to do it tonight, but this kind of conversation, you know, some people don't believe in it, but I see on your walls at some point, you've talked about what is a high functioning board, you talked about norms, you talked about focus. What we just mentioned there start to form your norms. As the board president, if we find ourselves not doing what we say that we're going to do, how do you do that? I mean, the board's the only people that can police the board are you. Superintendent can't. But the superintendents that police the board don't get renewed, okay? And so the only people that police each other to make sure there's follow through, to ensure that we do what we say we're going to do is you. But when times get tough, if you don't do that, and they're just another thing on the wall, right? So I want you to think about this conflict, because that's the first thing that's going to get us divorced, maybe break ourselves apart. First thing I figure out with my wife is if one of those things aren't present, you know, I love to blame her. You know, I don't think she's logged into this meeting, but it really would be easy for me to blame. But the best thing I can do is say, you know what did I do to screw that up? And I got to own half the responsibility. I'm not insinuating board members are big elephants, okay? I'm not insinuating that. I'm insinuating the grass are those kids that stood in the back of this room today. So when we can't function and we can't focus on our goals, essentially we're just shortchanging our kids. So let's talk about what these goals look like. I put these into 3 areas, okay? Now I want you to think about, the most important thing I want you to think about is student success. So you have facilities upon your horizon, you got a bond, potentially you have a lot of things going on. Those should all be in somewhat of a lens to impact kids, okay? We should be building facilities that will attract more students, that will retain our teachers, that will make us proud of the community, that will make us more cutting edge, maybe vocational, maybe possibilities for activities, am I right? Shouldn't that what our facilities be doing? And so I want you to think tonight as we think through these lenses here, and we walk through this activity, what do we want when we leave here as students, what do we want our kids to be able to do? Okay, your legacy is such, you've been on the board 6 years, you got about another 6 years to go before your first, let's say, kindergartners graduate. What do you want your legacy to be in this district that you as a board has provided for the students? And this is this question. So what do we think is a successful graduate when they leave Walt-Muncie? So first thing I want you to think about is change. So with your shoulder partner, you got some post-it notes by you. I want you to come up with 2 or 3 in the next 12 to 18 months that you think are going to be the biggest changes. Okay, you can do this individually, you can do it with your shoulder partner, but I want you to come up with the 2 or 3 biggest changes. Now these are what the superintendent's going to build his goals around. So if you put up student learning, if you put up facilities, you put up communication, those are going to be what are going to be reciprocated as we sit down with Justin and talk about what could a short-term goal for year 1 look like from these areas that we're talking about right now. Okay? So 2 or 3 changes that you foresee in the next 12 to 18 months that are going to be most important for your superintendent and your district. What about Mr. Turner? Do you need Mr. Turner from his ball game? Not ringing a bell. Also, Sheldon's. Men's. Well, that's good. You don't know these principals always nice. I stayed in the wood shop area. So it's paid off well. That's my teaching area. I can let you so probably a little different than you on which Pittsburgh State. Yeah. Construction science, but instead I picked to be a teacher of that, so I didn't change them. Got another minute. Good stuff. You know what would make this a lot better? Jim was here. If Jim was here.
I'm still writing down my 3 things. That's what you got.
Okay, let's report out here. This is not hard, just tell us all of them. So we'll start over at group 1 here. What are the 2 or 3 that you guys talked about?
Better communication.
Okay, communication.
More support and training for our staff, different folks, and better collaboration between the gentlemen.
Okay. So let's define that a little bit. What's better communication really look like from all the way from the board all the way down? What's that look like to you?
Like when there's, instead of somebody having to hear things through a rumor mill, which is misinformation most of the time. If we have something that comes down from the top. So if Justin and Rich talk about something, and that's what we're gonna do, then put it out.
Yeah.
Here's where we're gonna start.
Dr. Pitch, if I can put you on the spot, I would think when we think about communication, 2-way for you is important, right? Not just from you going down, but if something's going well and the board thinks it's going well, communicate. If hey, we need some tweak, we need some adjustment, much rather know that prior than the Monday board meeting, right? Come Monday, now it's an issue, is that fair?
That's exactly.
Okay.
It's good communication.
Yeah, Bruce will put that up. All right, ladies, what are your 2 or 3 that you talked about? Thank you.
We have a couple of the same, about
Okay.
communication and culture, collaboration. Facilities. Is it, we talked about the facilities, so that's a change in what we do.
Yeah, and then just curriculum, maybe working, Dr. Ditch working with the staff to meet the curriculum needs of the district that's in, listed as a priority.
Good. I've heard that collaboration, which probably involves curriculum, involves a lot of those issues a couple of times. So when you think about collaboration, what's that look like to you? If it's functioning at a high level, what is effective collaboration?
I would say that not only, it's not just teachers, or I'm a 5th grade teacher at, like I said, there's something still, 5th grade teacher in Alma, and I'm very different in the collaboration or something that's going on in the Naperville Elementary School. And it's not just teachers by themselves, but I think it's a collaboration with administration and staff and everyone in the district, so that everyone is on the same page of what we're trying to do.
How does parents play into that?
Yes, that too. Obviously, just staff and
Yeah.
employees, but yes, that too. So,
Good. Anybody want to add anything collaboration, Justin?
Yeah, I would like to add to that because, I mean, it's all, I've done it this way for 25 years, and so it's worked, and so we don't really look at new opportunities or new ways to do things, new ways to skin cats, and we had a little bit of conversation with that over the budget that they worked hard on and got some new training on, and we've got a fresh set of eyes, so it's always fun to see the change that happens in a business when a fresh set of leadership comes in and helps us see the forest for the trees again. Points out some deficiencies for us and collaborates that and sends that to us. But then, yeah, bringing the new ideas on curriculum, you know, here's some things that we've seen or we've heard or we should be researching or discussing. And then support from our teachers and from our employee base, that just because we talk about things here in an open session board meeting doesn't necessarily mean that they're happening, but we have to be able to talk about it as a community. We have to have trust that our patrons are helping us understand where they want this to go. They have to have trust that we're headed that direction. And so, I mean, it's part of the reason why we're on video tonight, is we want our patrons to trust us. We have nothing to hide from Dr. Pitch. He has nothing to hide from us. We have nothing to hide from them. And so hopefully a change that is coming is more trust from our community to our board, that we do have our kids' best interest in mind. And one that they haven't talked about, we talked about, was fiscal responsibility. They hit on it a little bit with facilities. I'm just hitting on fiscal responsibility. We have so much taxpayer money to achieve the ultimate goal of making sure our kids climb that ladder and get to the top rung. Yeah. And so how do we do that the most efficient way as possible? So
good. Yeah.
That's changes coming.
You know, I commend the board. I mean, there's not very many districts left streaming. You know, I always think that you come into a board meeting, we ought to have people in every chair, right? If people really care what's going on. And so commend the board. Kudos to you guys for sharing that out. So, okay, so as we shift here, let's think about challenges. So I want you to think we're shifting from change, and Justin said it very nicely in the sense that every time you change the leader or you add somebody to this team, you have opportunity to do things different. Partly because you have a different set of eyes on it, you know, different perspective, different experiences. Doesn't make them any better or worse than what you had before, but it makes them different. And so now you have the opportunity to make some change that maybe you haven't done before. But we want to think about also, what are those challenges this next year to 18 months that we're going to face? So talk about one or two of those challenges that you think, if I was the new superintendent here, I would want to know what that is so that I can help address it as we're developing those change and those goals to make some of this happen. So again, similar process with your neighbor there. One or two challenges. I would think that you being on board would know better.
I'm sure I'd have come if I thought they were doing it. 13 years.
Oh, 13 years. Okay, let's start back over here. What are some of those challenges that you guys discussed that really are, to be honest, are on the forefront as we tackle this next?
Sure. I'm going to say communication with public and misinformation, heading off misinformation as we go through changes with leadership at our school, at our each building. Been a change there, and with Vaughn that's coming on, there'll be a lot of communication, which I'm excited about. He's got a different communication style than what we've had in the past. And so he'll also be living here in the district, which is another change that may help with these challenges.
So, folks, let's sit around communication for a little bit, because Sounds like you got beaten up a little bit over that. So who communicates, when the board communicates, who is in charge of that communication? Where's that come from? Where should it come from? Maybe that's a better question. Who's the mouthpiece of the board?
Well, Jerome talks a lot.
Okay.
Mouthpiece. Go ahead.
I mean, I guess that's a great question. I mean, outside of here, I'm one individual that can't do anything until the board decides what we're gonna do as a group.
So you have 7 individuals, and when you come together, you have a board. When you leave there, just like what you said, you have 7 individual people. Now, if we happen to have media here, the board president and the superintendent should be, in essence, the 2 people that really would deliver that message. Now, not because we don't want Callie not to talk or anything like that, so it's a uniform message. It's the same that the whole board feels like. Now, you as the board president could say, you know what, I want Jerome to be the mouthpiece. I want him to be that person. You can do that as a board. It doesn't really matter. But if all 7 of us go out there and tell 7 different stories, what do you think the community is going to say at that point? And that's where they get you a little bit. They go, oh, that's not what I heard. And then all of a sudden you get this, he said, she said, and what is it, the dog or the tail? And so you start to chase yourself. Another great example, when we walk out of here, let's say it's a split vote, let's say it's 4-2. Doesn't really matter. And somebody, the first thing they're going to say is, hey, who voted no? The board voted to make this motion and adopt this policy, right? We can choose to throw people under the bus, or we can say, you know what, our board decided this. Maybe I wasn't on the winning side this time of that vote, but next time maybe I will. And so a couple examples of how that is taken care of here. Then when it passes to the superintendent, what do you expect as a board that the superintendent does after the meeting's over with that communication? What's your direction, your expectation of him? What should that look like?
Well, I mean, I would expect that he would go back and communicate with the district staff on the pertinent points of the board meeting that particularly, directly affect them in the short term, and also continue to talk to them about what the long-term goals are.
Okay, good. Who else wants to add to that? Dr. Pitch, what do you think? How do you see yourself carrying that vision out from board meeting to board meeting with community members, with staff, with potentially patrons, and even with the board? What's that look like in your mind?
So what it looks like to me is when I communicate to the public, to the staff, etc., I'm communicating as a representative of the board. But the catch is, I can't communicate in such a way as, well, the board decided this. It's a we. This is what we've decided as a group, as a district, that we're moving in this direction or this direction. Not the board said this, so we're just going to go ahead and do it. That's the opposite of what we need to do. It always needs to be one band, one sound.
I like it. Anybody disagree with that? Great superintendents, whether he thinks the board made a great decision or not, the public's never going to know that, right? The board has decided to do A, B, and C. It's his job to carry it out. Your job is to, first of all, say, you know what, I don't have an answer to that. Chain of command, you need to go to the lowest level, right? You need to go to the teacher. You need to go to the coach. You need to go to the principal before you come to the board. You don't need to talk to me, maybe you need to talk to the superintendent. So anything we're missing on communications, that's a biggie. That either grows you together or breaks you apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys have anything else on yours, Justin?
No, we didn't.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, let's go to this group. What are some of those challenges?
We came up with staffing concerns, which I think is a nationwide issue. Enrollment, and how that impacts the budget, and then our bond election.
Yeah. So, staffing concerns, and we just don't have time to get into it tonight, but there's a great study that ESU did with Rec Church. I don't know if this district participated, but some great retention recruitment data. So if you haven't tapped into that, great resource. Be something that would be worth getting a small team of teachers, support staff together to start talking about that. Maybe even a board member on that role. And really start to think about how that meshes with your facilities. When we're talking about facilities, I hope he says something about that these should help drive some enrollment. When we're building things and we're creating programs, we hope we're not just doing them for the 2 people we have in our classes. We hope that we're going to add 2 people to that, right? Whether it's our own kids or districts. How many districts surround this district?
There's 7 in the county.
Yep. Normally it's about 7 or 8 neighboring districts share your border. Folks, that's a lot of people. I don't want to put Dr. Pitch on the spot, and this might be a great thing as you guys continue to move forward. How many of your kids in your boundaries are going to another district? 70. I don't know what 70 times 4,600 is, but it starts to be pretty lucrative. And so how do we keep the kids we have? And the old saying is, well, we don't want that one anyway. Well, we want them all. Okay? No matter what they look like and how they behave, we want every single one, and we're going to do the best job we can, right? That's really important. Okay, last group. What other challenges did we not hit?
Well, you hit on the bond, and that's what we had that. One thing I had was availability of equipment and supplies for us to continue. So just as you heard tonight, can't get a classroom ready because supplies aren't there. And the other was budget. Just availability of things to keep the normal, everyday, ordinary things going.
Now you think the simple things as materials, it's interesting because our boards have had to think farther in advance. So 6 months to a year now versus, hey, we got 3 or 4 months turnaround. Now when we do construction, some of those things aren't available. And so I bet your construction people talk about that too, to be forward thinking and to be smart about, hey, what are we going to plan? And what timeline are we going to stay on? Because it's hard to get all those things in place, especially day one for kids. Okay, last one, when we think about goals, I want you to think about what's that one warning that you would want to share with Dr. Pitch so that this transition is highly successful, smooth. What's that one warning that you can think of as board members? Many of you have been on the board for some time, been in this community for a long time. Pick on my high school principal. A hot button he shared earlier about homecoming. I'm sure it's well thought out and he's got people he's working with. But first thing the superintendent can do, hey, you know what? We're going to change up the homecoming parade. Oh, really? We are? You know how many years we've done the homecoming parade that way in Walensee? And so what are those warnings, folks? You guys know them better than anybody that you'd want to make sure that he was aware of so that he wouldn't step into that area that really would not be pleasant. So take just a moment with your shoulder partner. Well, partly because you do it by yourself.
Well, no, it's his turn.
Oh, it's just there.
Yeah, we're done.
He knows the word. Okay, what warnings we have? Do we have any? Got to be something out there that it could be just simple that we take for granted somewhat, but anything out there that you talked about with your partner?
The divide between the cities and the different towns.
Divide between the cities and the different towns. How many different cities or towns or townships do you guys represent here? 4? And all 4 probably think theirs the most important, right? Is that fair? So when you make a decision here, you need to be thoughtful about those 4 entities. Is that fair to say? Yep.
More so the kids inside that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids, good.
I would say more about that. I don't know that it's, I would say that's everyone in the district or every everybody in every community, but there are those that feel that.
What were you gonna add to it?
I said there's only one district, but maybe 4 towns could be 100 towns, so one district, you're all part of it.
Do they feel that way, you know? Superintendent can make it feel really good if they're valued and heard, right? Even though there is one district, sometimes people don't see that, so good. What else? Any other warnings you think of?
I always say people will take good news any time of day. So if you got bad news, tell it early and tell it often.
Are you gonna tell your story and let somebody else tell it for you? Yeah, that's it. How does the FCCLA, how does that information get out to your patrons, to your staff? You know, obviously that's not the board's job, the superintendent's role, but those things are important.
How do we champion ourselves?
How do you what?
How do we champion ourselves?
Be honest, if you guys drove down I-70 here, be close enough to this corridor, what do you think of each town as you drive by them? Is there something that resonates with you? Like when you drive past Wamego, going into Topeka, Silver Lake, Rossville, St. Mary's, what do you think about each one of those areas? Do you ever think, man, I'd like to live there maybe? Or, hey, I'd like to send my kids there. What do they say about your district? Be interested, wouldn't it? Find out. What should that message be that they're hearing? The board sets that tone. The board sets that vision. Sounds corny, but you got a sign out on the highway? It says Walbunsie USD. If it did, what would it say on it? We love football?
If you want to sell your car, do you talk it down or you talk it up?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. This is the best car ever, or do you call it a piece of junk? Oh, this is a Cadillac, right?
Yeah.
Oh, did you see these leather seats in here? Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, they polish up real good,
I
right?
did too.
What?
He did too.
Oh, he did. Yeah. So I think it's a great message. Did you guys think about, I encourage a new board, new superintendent to do some strategic planning first year in the spring semester. And when you do that, we have to start thinking about what kind of car do we have? What would we tell people that it's like? If we were going to put an ad in Auto Trader and people from halfway across the country are going to read it, what would it say about your district? What are you proud of? Silver Lake, and I've done a lot of work with them, I guarantee in the first paragraph it's going to say something about their football championships, their presence and activities, their small town, their dedication to their kids, right? What would yours say? Probably say a lot of similar things, but are people hearing it? Is it out there for them to readily get to? Okay?
I hope we brag about our academics.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you said we were here for?
If you want to be a high achieving board. Yep, it's a good point. Great point. Other warnings before we shift here? Last thing, we're going to talk about expectations. So Dr. Pitch is going to give his expectations from him to the board. Okay, he really only has one opportunity to do that, folks. That's pretty simple. Okay, his job is not to tell the board how to behave. His job is not to tell the board really what to do. His job is to guide. His job is to recommend. His job is to get you all the information you need to make a great decision. Your job, to simplify it, is to set a clear vision, to adopt policy, to tell him what we'd like to do as a district. That's why we hired him. Go do it. Go get it done. Okay? So I'm going to arbitrarily kind of divide you up, but essentially I'm going to give a piece of paper to Justin. He can pick whoever he wants to write, but I want you to come up. I'm going to have you do this individually, and then you'll come together as a board. So I want you to think 3 to 5 expectations that you have of the superintendent, from the board to the superintendent. I'll give you the first one. It has a hint. Okay, and they can be whatever you want, but here's a model one. One of them, I would think, was going to be effective communication, two-way effective communication. Number one thing why superintendents struggle in this position is that they don't have clear communication with board members. And it can't just be Justin. Okay, I may sit down with Justin each month, him and I may go eat lunch together, we may go develop the agenda, we may talk about everything that's going on, right? But whether you like it or not, I have to sit down and I have to talk with each person on the board. I need to go see Jerome where he's at, okay? I need to go talk with him, learn who he is, build that relationship. But to do that, that effective two-way communication. Jerome wants to be communicated differently than Justin, different than Callie, etc. The art of being a superintendent is figuring that out. Okay, so that is just one I would model. So I'm going to give you a piece of paper here. So individually bring your Post-it notes here. Okay, write 3 or 4, each one of you, and then we'll put them here together. And then Justin or somebody that he designates will just write the 5 or 6 or 8. Go from there.
So give them a little bit to do their individual stuff
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. We end up having, let's say, 8 or 9. Great. Theme them if you can, like if somebody says communication policy. Never let down the time-ish. Okay. So we run, let's say, hold the fire. Yeah, ours for you. This allows the superintendent to have a clear understanding of what the board expects, which can happen at any time, obviously, but allows him that safe harbor to get started.
Very good. There he is.
You know, he was going to hand those out after, but I see he strategically did it before you voted.
I can be Brian.
Are you ladies good? I need a little bit more time. All right, once you're ready, why don't you guys come on over here around Justin, he'll,
You're gonna make me right?
Thank you, but I have this.
just want to hang it, just hang it over time.
Good night.
I'll let you facilitate this.
Okay.
You guide it. I'll help you if you need.
I started with selling our district to our patrons. That's what I started with. Did anybody else have anything similar?
I did. Just starting soon.
So maybe write the first one, selling your district. Selling our district.
I'm trying to. Financially too. But I believe that, things like FCCLA feel completely misunderstood to a portion of our patrons that no longer have kids here. And they're not on Facebook, and they're not on, maybe they don't get the local paper and they don't see the charger or whatever it may be. They hear it through word of mouth, and where is that word of mouth coming from? So I think we've got, as a board and as a district, we have to get better at that.
I was sure that. Tax dollars are growing, and, but they're doing good where they're at, and things like that.
And how does that benefit them as a community member, as a patron? How does that benefit each town? We got to be able to draw a tie back to it, because yes, I'm investing my money for those kids to do good, but if that's not, what does that return for us? There's got to be something in it for them.
You guys feel like some of you are products of, you had a good experience here in this school district. Thus, you wanted to come back and live here and raise your family, right? Never left. If you have, Say again?
Nobody else will take it.
But if you have a poor experience, to go to your point, if you have a poor experience, do you think you're willing to come back here to do those things? Yeah, I think that's a top one.
You know, there was an obituary in the paper this week of a man who was 105 years old that graduated here, 1930 something. Went off, built airplanes, very successful. And there was more stories. I had an all-school reunion for Alma High School. It was over there in June. And I did an invocation for him. And I said, look around, we just talked with all the people there. And there was a small, 200 and some people there. That was very small, considering classes from 1930s. But of all the successful people, that's one thing I said, look, from a small, local community school, and that was the school in the day, was the gym was inside of it, so, the products that came out of it.
How do people know those things?
Right.
That's great. That's a great deal. What's next?
I also came up with transparency. I mean, transparency of board information, of school information, and with transparency becomes increased trust. I mean, I've hit on it a couple times. I truly believe that we have a great board. We don't always agree, but we're always fighting tooth and nail to make sure the right thing happens and comes collectively together with that. And I believe that we need to do a good job of selling ourselves to our patrons as well. I'm not trying to sell them a bill of goods. I'm just trying to make sure they understand that we are all vested. We all do have different ideas, and we're trying to figure out one common way to skin the cat. But so those were the two that I had come up with. Anybody else have anything similar?
I just had to be seen in the district. I think that's important because the superintendents of your schools are some of their highest paid, in the class of the highest paid individuals in our county. So it's important, I think, that they be seen and just around the communities have things, just be there, just make it, show up.
Make an effort to be a part of it.
We used to have, they would come to our chamber meetings in Alma, I know, different ones. And to be involved. If there are things out there, don't be afraid to be involved in the community things. It helps build that rapport and relationship with communities, and they know who you are.
That might help with those top two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially.
Yep.
Being involved, being seen, sitting down, drinking coffee. Yeah.
And be a positive picture of leadership.
Yeah, good point.
Can I add to that? It's I think not only in the communities, but also within the district itself,
Yeah.
within the
Yeah.
classrooms and the buildings.
Great. Good.
I had similar, I just say community relations and district cheerleader, both
Yeah.
for the staff, for the people who are here working, for the students, and then also for the community. District cheerleader.
So funny, a district this size, I'll bet by the end of the year, every single kid will know who Dr. Fitch is. Possibly, he'll know every single kid. I mean, you guys got this perfect size where you have that ability. You come from Topeka, it's pretty tough to know 1,200, 1,500 kids. But in your district, you got possibility if you set your sights high. Can you imagine you're sitting around the table and you're talking about a bond? Like, hey, Dr. Fitch came to our activity day. Who? Oh, he's our superintendent. Really? Oh, be heck. You know, I mean, those things start to breed success. And the board helps direct all those things. Kind of seems simple, but you are the body to ensure that that happens.
Tony, do you have something to add?
I had build staff pride. So, because I think if we can build staff pride, it will help with our current situation we're in with personnel. Hey, this goes along with the other, hey, this is a great place to work. I don't think we have that universally. I think we have it in spots, but I don't think we have it universally.
That's always a goal of a business, is to not just be a paycheck, right?
What else, ladies in the middle? What have we said?
I had just bring forward changes, goals, ideas to the board, like what are some new ideas that we're looking at. or something that we have.
Challenge your thinking a little bit of, hey, you know, a little bit of the status quo, somebody said that earlier. How do we initiate some new things here? Okay, good.
I'll tag on to that. I said the same thing, kind of, as a positive driving force for change and student success. So just bringing those forward.
She did a fantastic job of filling the candy dish. You guys want some?
No, thanks.
Sure.
I do, but don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna take whatever you
That was
guys
all
want.
Charmin.
That was all Charlotte.
It was
Oh,
all
it was?
Charmin.
She did fantastic.
Tell her she did great.
I will.
So think real quick, what are we missing, folks? What are we missing up there that we want to make sure our superintendent has clear direction? This isn't a gotcha game. I love, if we're going to ask these 5 things on the test, we want to know what 5 things are going to be tested over. It's that simple. And superintendent's no different. He wants to know exactly what you expect so he can knock it out of the park.
And I have one other thing that's pretty, like, you would think that it's evident, just like follow through, there's board action, follow through, whatever it might be.
Said that earlier, yeah, in a roundabout way. Do what you say you're going to do. Yep. Good.
That helps build trust.
Dr. Pitch, anything on there that as you read that you want a little bit more clarity or kind of information from the board about that would help kind of guide your next 6 to 12 months?
You know, I think they're pretty clear, and what wasn't clear was explained pretty thoroughly, so I think I'm very clear on what's kind of.
Board, we leave anything out? So I'm just going to ask one thing that I see that's very common. What about communication? It might be on his, but what's your expectation of him for communication? And maybe we flush that out enough through change and challenges possibly, but is there any clear expectation around that communication that you'd want to have some conversation about?
Well, yes, me individually. I mean, I want him to know that I trust him to run our district. I mean, to do the day-to-day operations. Otherwise, I wouldn't have voted to hire you to bring you in here, right? So, I mean, I trust you on your day-to-day decision-making, but I also understand that there's a fine line between, okay, what does the board want to know and what does the board not want to know? And, I mean, I'll know anything, so you can't over-communicate with me, but as long as it's in readable form. I'm a texter or an emailer. I talk on the phone too much as it is most of the time, but anyway, I'm just not available via phone calls very often, so I like to be able to read it and go through it and understand it before I can respond. And then I need to know if you want a response, you know. Hey, let me know if you need it. I'm a pretty black and white guy, so.
I've had that before where something is going on, and that people ask me, you didn't know about that? I said, no, I didn't think I probably needed to know about that. That is what we hire administrators for, superintendent, your principals, and that's not for the board, I don't feel, to delve into that. That's their jobs. They're not telling us what to do, and we're not telling them. We'll have things, and we work together to set policies or whatever. Then they take it from there. It's not, we're not trained in that. I don't think anybody sitting around this table has training to do that, other than Dr. Pitch. But, so I have confidence, like Justin said. Otherwise, you don't hire them if you don't have confidence in people.
So to paraphrase you too, I'm hearing you say that I want to know what I need to know to be able to make a decision at the board table. Otherwise, I trust that you're going to take care of it. And if I need to know, you'll tell me. Otherwise, we're moving down the road. Is that a fair assessment of what you two said?
Yeah, you're on my phone.
Yeah. Every board's a little different. Some boards want everything, some boards want zero. So it's good to talk it out a little bit.
Have you been satisfied so far?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good, good, good.
There's a lot of communication coming from him, more than what I'm used to, so.
Good. So if we keep our current practice, we're going to be in pretty good shape, I'm going to say. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Your turn, sir, to put your expectations of the board.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kelly.
Board's like to post this.
So,
It's a Dr. Sandra, I guess. That's not very good either. Okay, so I have 5 things that I've recorded for my expectations for the board, and I noticed a lot of the language that I've used in here has already been said tonight. So I'm pleased to hear those alignments already working without even having gone through this exercise yet. So my first expectation is the prioritization of student achievement, which means being accountability driven, spending less time on operational issues and on what's most vital to student success. Any of these you have any questions on, just stop me, but I'll burn through them real quickly. The second one is willingness to abide by its own rules, policies, and code of ethical conduct that you guys have already agreed on as board members of this district. The third one is the willingness to acknowledge and follow the chain of command of the school district, which again I've already heard, which is it's encouraging. Fourth, careful consideration of each recommendation made by the superintendent. I also heard that information coming out of this group. And then lastly, a practice of avoiding surprises and surprise items at board meetings, both directions. And I'm hoping those are clear cut enough that they don't require a lot of explanation.
thoughts or comments or right on track? Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, so as we end tonight, just 1 hour. Want to be done just a smidgen earlier, actually. So last thing that's in front of you, I just want to make sure that you have it, is your opportunity for evaluation. So front page is just a kind of a checklist. Second page is your timeline. So Michelle can help with that. But essentially, superintendent for the first 2 years needs to be evaluated twice, folks. So November 1st, April 1st. So she should be building an agenda with Dr. Pitch of, hey, when should I do my self-eval? When should I bring that to the board? When should the board have the conversation, executive session about the evaluation? Typically, Justin would say a month in advance, hey folks, fill out what strengths, areas for growth, etc. This first window is kind of hard. You're really just kind of going on the honeymoon. Okay, we just got back from Orlando, got a little bit of a light tan, okay? That's a little bit tough. Everybody's happy right now. So we want to continue to focus on what we did this evening. Those are the key pieces that he's going to be working on, are the changes and the expectations. So that may take place in October where we hand this out, give the board a little bit of homework, say, hey, bring this to our November meeting. Typically, the board goes to the executive session by themselves and says, hey, what are the expectations? Are the goals being met? Yes. Almost. No. It can be that simple. Need to build somewhat of a consensus. Bring Dr. Pitch in. Be as clear as you can be. Dr. Pitch, you're doing good here. You're doing good here. Here we want a little bit more pressure. We want a little bit more action on this. He wants that feedback, folks. The worst thing you can do is figure out your board doesn't think you're right on line because you didn't tell them. That's what this tool does. You guys come out of executive session and you approve the evaluation, you approve the contract, however you want to go about it. Typically, superintendent rolls over on an annual basis. Okay, everybody does it a little bit different, whether it's a 1 year or 2 year contract, but they do it based off the evaluation. In the first and second year, if you're on a 1 year, you can't wait until April to do that. The reason I bring it up in November, it's a little early. On a traditional cycle, if you're in year 3, so if he is here in year 3, he gets evaluated by that February 15th statute date. That gives the board ample time to roll the contract. April, folks, for him, for you, puts you in a bind. Okay? Does that make sense what I'm articulating there? So you'll do this twice. If he's on a 2 years, probably not much of a conversation right now. If he's on a 1 year, you'll need to talk about that at least prior to Christmas time to start having some conversation about what looks like. Okay? I'm willing, Justin, Dr. Pitch, if you guys want to work, it's no extra charge, no extra anything besides just a Zoom conversation. What we do is take that information tonight and we really refine what those 2 or 3 goals are as a board, and then the board just says yes. Or, hey, yes, but we want to tweak it a little bit. Just helps with that process for the first time, kind of helps model what good practice might be. Johnson. What questions do you have of me? Convention's coming up November. Love to see you there, okay? We put it in November so that way if you're a rancher, that'll be just a perfect time. You'll have a little bit of wall, okay, right there. I'd encourage you, anytime you guys can do board training for yourselves, individually, as a group, you know, as corny as it may sound, Patrick Mahomes and his team, they're always trying to find their chemistry. You know, Justin does the small things you can see in the board meeting to try to do those things. How do you guys reciprocate? How can you continue to grow? And the last thing, I'd encourage you to do a long-range plan, update it, overhaul it, figure it out, and start thinking about what the next 3 to 5 years look like strategically, and make sure that those things happen. So, questions, comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Good to see you.
Thank you.
It's always kind of an exciting time, isn't it?
Yeah, you did a good job.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. Yeah, it really is. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hart.
All right. All right, I guess then moving on. The next item is the resolution authorizing bond election. And I have the resolution here, and it reads, a resolution authorizing and providing for the calling of a bond election in Unified School District Number 329, Wabunsee County, Kansas, for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of the district the question of issuing general obligation bonds of the district, authorizing application to the State Board of Education for the authority to call the bond election and for capital improvement state aid, and providing for the giving of notice of the bond election. So, as our timeline that we have been discussing for the coming months, this is a month that we have to notify the state that we are intending on having a bond election in November. We've all been discussing what that is and how some of those changes have come about. Got a lot of input. We sent out a lot of surveys. We spent a lot of time with teachers and staff and community leaders in the community, city governments. Patrick, you have anything to add tonight before we make this our final vote here?
I don't. I'm just here for any questions you might have.
Okay. So then I guess I open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about moving forward with the bond that we have been discussing?
Are we ready?
Tell me more.
Question, are we ready?
You must have doubts.
Well, I hear more and more and more from communities that they're going to have to go with the bond, they're going to do something. Well, yes, it was intended for November, so as far as I know. Of course, I haven't been here at all meetings, but they're very curious about it. Plus, want to know what it's going to cost and everything else to talk about. So I wonder if we're rushing it. Does it need to be done in November?
Valid question.
Just a question, you know? We can do it. I just want to be ready, and I want something that will have a good chance of passing, because I voted to do this. But I want to make sure that we're ready so that when we get it out there.
I'll go back real quick and just review what our expectations were of our timeline. And it has looked like we have been kind of secretive about the bond to this point. And I think the issue was, one, we wanted to have a good plan put in place through BHS and HDK before we submitted that to teachers. Then we wanted to get in front of teachers before we got in front of patrons. Is there anything you see here that wouldn't be acceptable or that you would like to have fixed, changed, or added to?
I just wonder if we'll have enough time in front of the patrons.
And then now we would be, I mean, this is really the first rollout. I guess I see it in my head as we're rolling out. And so I would, if we're going to do it in November, we're going to have a busy
Yeah,
September, October,
yeah.
to do it.
That's all you have.
Right.
And then it's there.
And so, at the same time, though, that is 60, 90 days. And so if, as a board, we can't commit to getting in front of patrons, you know, several times. I know I seen in Dr. Fitch's notes that he was going to get in front of a lot of, or have the opportunity down at Hot Alma Nights to have a spot too. And that's not the only one. I'm just saying now's that time, though. Dawn, you bring up a great point.
Yeah.
What are the ideas of getting in front of them right now? Because once we vote to do this, we have to have follow through, like we've been kind of discussing the changes and the opportunities and the weaknesses. We have to have a follow through. What does that follow through look like? So I'll ask you, do you have some follow up? Do you have some ideas of how we get in front of them and what's best?
Well, I think, and Dr. Fitch talked to me about setting a table in front of the shop down there for Hot Alma Nights to hand out things, which would be great. Because there'd be a lot of people. There'd be a lot of them that aren't patrons, but everybody can see what's going on. I'd like to open up our facilities and take them through and tell them, you know, hey, this is what we're planning to do. And then also, I do have some concerns on what, just on the plans that I see. Of course, I haven't been here, and I apologize for that. But, just some things I think we could cut and make it a little more feasible. Because I worry, in the time we just passed a bond or a half-cent sales tax for the county, which was just renewal for road and bridge stuff. Then you're gonna ask for this. I don't know what the total dollar figure is yet. Do we have a total?
Yeah, it was 17.9.
It hasn't gone up any?
Is that accurate? I thought it was 19 and a half.
No, it's 17 now.
Okay. I was hoping we'd have it down closer to 15. So it's going to be a hard sell. Just given the current times of where we're at, like I said, I'm for it, but I just don't want us to put it out and feel like, wow, we just can't get anything passed. And is it worth taking more time, or is it worth just shoving through and going? It's just a question, I'm not being negative.
Nope. I will say I will support. I'll match that. I was hoping to be between 15 and 16 million. We most of that got added pretty much after we met with the teaching staff and did some relocation and some things that they thought were extremely important and met some of their needs, which was cool. And so I agree on the amount. I agree on the timing of the economy. Do I believe that in the next 60 to 90 days that I'm willing to put forth the effort to get in front of as many people as want me to get in front of? I will commit the time because I am here and I will do it. I'm not saying it's exciting or fun. I've got a lot of other things going on, a lot of young kids, and I'll be bouncing around to a lot of stuff, but I will commit the time to making sure that anybody that has a question about this and wants to see my face and have that discussion, that I will make the time to make that happen. So, am I good with having it in November? As long as the group is, but I'm not gonna be the one lone soldier that says, okay, well, fine, I'm the president of the board. I'm gonna take this on my shoulders and I'm gonna do it alone, because I will not.
No, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
It should be just what you said, transparency, and everybody sewing the same color and singing the same song.
Yep.
When we do it. But I just have reservations, just knowing our community, been here for almost 60 years, and knowing what it is. There's a lot of rural ag here that gets affected by this, and a lot of elderly ones that are going to be affected significantly on their homes. And I don't want to be the ones that said, because we had to have this and have a Taj Mahal, we tax it out of your homes. I don't want to be that person. I want to be considerate of what they have to and listen to what they have to say. And some of them will vote no matter what you do, no matter what you do. But I think if we get out in front of people and work on this, I just question if it's enough time from now to November. And I'd love to see it so that we could get moving on that. It's just a question. Like I said, that there were some items in there in the district office, the cost for it, the cost for connecting link to the high school. You can trim a lot of money off of there in a hurry. And the kitchen renovation, I can't imagine it costs that much to put the kitchen equipment in, and it does.
Kelly?
I just meant to be, on that point, that we spent a lot of time, that we had a significant amount of time the last time we ran bond. And people complained that, you know, a year wasn't enough time. So I think that a benefit to having a shortened amount of time, just to play devil's advocate, would be that it's in front of people for a shorter amount of time. It's a little more intensive. I think we have some strategies to have some of this information, and we've talked about what maybe the difference in the type of information that we present is given to the people, and it maybe a shorter time frame actually works in our favor a little bit, so it's not where everybody gets busy and then forgets about it, and then and we present something again and then it gets busy and they forget. Sometimes too much time is not always in your favor either.
I agree. And excuse me for interrupting, but I think we knew a lot more about it than what the public did. I mean, because we were working on it all the time, but it wasn't out in front of the public that whole time. Being sold, but
I mean, I would disagree with that. We had how many meetings? How many open sessions at different schools, at different locations? And every board meeting is open. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way, but I think we had a lot of opportunities for people to come. And we had a lot of information that we presented, and a lot of us were there doing those things. And we had a lot of meetings where there were very few people in attendance. So I think I'm in support of it being in November. That's what we said we were going to do. We had a timeline out there. We've been sticking with it. We set the goals for when that was going to be. We've gotten the plans from contractors multiple times, had chances to talk about the revisions that we would want to see, had opportunities to discuss how we lower those. In fact, there were multiple emails specifically saying, what can we do to decrease these costs? I don't know who all responded to that or what happened with them, but I mean, that's my 2 cents. I can understand your point. I think it would not be good though to also say, well, we had this timeline, now we're not going to do this timeline. I don't know.
I've been asked just last week, are you guys doing it? No, it's August 29th. Is that the last day you can do anything to notify them? Or is it 19th? One of them, before you were going to have a bond. Or say maybe we're going to do something. Nothing in that. Yes, we are.
I'm hate to say this on video, but I'm a procrastinator by nature. So when a hot topic like this comes up, I kind of put myself at a 60-day time frame. So if you push it off till next November, I'm probably not going to get real excited about it unless you force me to be until next August. But again, I go either way. I want to make sure that the communities and the patrons have what they want, and that's where I'm at. I'm ready to invest the time. But Kelly, you had something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that, we wanted to make sure, because I think last time there was a lot of miscommunication and misinformation about what was even in the bond. And so we didn't want to have a lot of, I think we had all those different options last time, and then people were confused. And so I think this time we were trying to make sure we were honed in on here's what it is, and this is what we want to do. And so we needed to make sure we knew that first before we wanted to really go public with it, as far as making sure that then people would hopefully be confused on what we were actually trying to do.
Which in turn caused some confusion around timeframes.
Yes.
Probably.
And even with that, I think that, to Justin, And so I would hate for us to then keep putting it off, because the longer we put it off, the more expensive it's going to be to do the exact same project we want to do right now. And it's just going to keep increasing the cost. Inflation is going to keep going. And our ability to do the same level of work is not, I mean, it's just more every time. And I'm hoping that we as a board can, and as a district, can get that information out to patrons in lots of different ways.
If we didn't, we failed.
Right. And I think
And
there's
that's on
lots of
us.
ways that we can do that. It's not, only put it on our website and that's it. There's going to have to be a lot of work that'll have to be done. But anyway, I don't want us to put it off again, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Has anybody else but Jerome, do you have any feedback? Pat, do you have any feedback around that?
I know, to Kelly's point, the longer you wait, it's just gonna go up in cost. I'd love to see it level out and go down, but I don't see that happening. You guys, everybody sees it in all the products you buy today, so that'd be my fear is it's gonna be a $20 million bond next year for the same thing. And I hope we find some efficiencies, the bond passes and move forward with construction. Don sits down and we go through the plan. There's some efficiencies we can gain with some of the construction and design, and we're all about it. I think you don't have to spend every dollar that's in that bond now. I do feel like we went through the plan really well, though. And there was a lot of comments, a lot of good comments from teachers to clean things up. And I think the last move was kitchen from high school to grade school was a good move. There's been a lot of thought put into this plan.
It's just regurgitating that now and getting it out. So to Tom's point, what would be our promotion plan? Does anybody have a promotion plan? What would be the next steps? If this passes tonight, what's the board's next steps in order to get in front of people?
I mean, Dr. Pitch's meeting with patrons and setting up different things. I had some, they're very basic things, but I feel like we need to get basic plans, basic layouts, and the bond information of what it includes and what it's going to entail. And I think just what we didn't do last time, we just need to have all of those things out in the local areas. Stop to the community center. I mean, grassroots. Those things have to be out and accessible. If you don't come to a board meeting, that's fine, but you go to Stop to for gas, and you can pick up a flyer. If you don't go to Stop to, you go to Dollar General, and you can pick up something. And just have them, or in Maple Hill at the community center, or in Taxico at, any number of those shops that are there, a winery, whatever, just all the access points. So it hits all the people. I know that that's a cost with paper, but we can surely rally some of that fundage. And then we've had the meetings before. I have mixed feelings on those because we have them and nobody comes. But we have them, so we can still do those. And I think we just start a plan for those things. But I think what I heard a lot of was I didn't have a hard copy piece of paper in my hand that showed me what it was going to look like, basically, an outline. Obviously not like here's this hallway and this color of the wall or whatever. But I heard a lot of that. I didn't have a piece of paper in front of me that told me what was in the bond and what it could possibly look like. So I think we need to do that.
Anybody else have any communication?
In addition to that, the same type of places would be, I think, just events that we have at the school or other community type events that we can have something set up versus, just be on a tripod, something set up where people can go see the information or read the information as they come in. I know that's just people that are in our school, but it's also their grandparents and their aunts and their relatives that are coming into the schools too. It's not just the parents only.
On PowerPoint that's playing in the commons area.
Anything that's but it's quick, it's easy to see. It can't be much more than a page. I think for people to be able to, that's about as much as people are going to read. And not, and a lot of pictures or graphics with that, not oriented to
It's
text.
just a few seconds. that you
Right.
do it. There
Right,
again.
a couple points.
Grabs and put it there.
So, anyway,
And to Don's point, if we wanted to do some tours, like wrangle up a couple of
Yeah.
our students and schedule some times.
open up our
Board members
facilities.
can schedule a time.
Can, but those students, they're face.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, I would, if it needs to be a Saturday morning, because
Mhm.
that's when people are available, then I'll commit a Saturday morning to be in a facility.
Right.
And I'll sit there for 4 hours, advertise it. And if they can't get there until the last minute of the 4th hour, then that's when we'll go through it, but. Do you have any thoughts about the selling, or, I mean, I'm not trying to sell anybody, I'm trying to get the information out. Any,
So I don't know what we're wanting to do, yeah. I agree with advanced or, but something out there. If the senior center in Maple Hill wants to have somebody go down, get a board member or two, and go down and have a plan and explain to them, this is our plan, this is what our intentions are, this is why we're doing it, and explain the benefits of being consolidated, the savings. I don't think anybody around here understands the savings you're gonna realize over time on that. See, they're gonna spend a lot to do that, but you're gonna realize a lot of cost savings.
I mean, even Dr. Hart mentioned the billboard, you know, out on, I mean, maybe we rent a billboard and say, have you heard about the bond? Here's the places you go to get information. I mean, we can't use school funds to sell and you need to vote yes. All I'm trying to do is get something out there to ask questions.
Right.
Did you know there was a bond happening? If you didn't, here's where you go to find out information and lead them to Dr. Pitch, and then he can call in reinforcements as needed on deals like that.
And they have to be ready to be rejected, because there'll be some that'll reject, just the fact of life. But hopefully, as I said before, we are one district, many towns, one district, we'll all benefit from that. If we can get it sold, and that's my hope. That was just my question, and we have time, you know.
I don't argue.
Willing to help out on that, that's just a question.
Can I add one thing to Don's point?
Yes.
Just that I think it would be good, we're talking about talking points or whatever. It might be good for us as board members to have like, here's your talking points about bond, here's the highlights of each, so that we're all saying the same thing too. About here's the benefits, here's, or a quick reference, like if someone has a question, so that we know.
Factual based.
Yeah,
Here's some facts.
Here's some facts that we know, that we all know about, we all have the same facts about.
And I think Maria or HDK is really good at providing those types of things. We're just gonna have to put it in. I mean, she'll provide us with the bullet points, I think, too, and help us with that.
I think you'll have questions too that have already probably come up, and more that will come up, that probably have those as kind of your talking points too. You know, a major question.
We had a great turnout with the teachers that day. I know that not every teacher showed up there, and I apologize to those that wanted to show up that couldn't make it, but we had a great turnout, and I think the overall resounding response seemed very positive, right? And most of them were excited about the November date. But we talked to them 30, 40 days ago now, too. So they've got 40 days more information than what we're getting ready to turn out to the patrons, the people that are the vast majority of the votes. So, but I stand by our decision to do it this way because the right people got involved at the right times to make sure we had good information on paper to even submit out. Anyway. Tonight we have to either approve or disapprove of this resolution. It's on the agenda as an action item.
I move to approve.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor to approve the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. So now, I mean, there will be, I think maybe in your next Friday notes, put out some ideas on getting collaboration, and if you have any, then hey, this is what I think we ought to do. Send them to Dr. Pitch, and Dr. Pitch will put a summary together on how we're going to get out in front of the communities. So, does that sound fair?
Yes, I've already started to work with Maria on, I looked at some other brochures of successful bond packages in the area to look at their design. We've already taken a look at the voting, the turnout. We did not have about 800 people turn out for the last vote for the bond election. So there's also a message of getting out to vote that we're going to need to rely on to get more voters out there. I think we've got some plans in place and hearing some additional ideas, and this is, I think the iron's hot.
Good. It'll be important to summarize that and then keep going while the iron's hot.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, next is authorizing the date of the special meeting for purpose of the budget hearing. August 22nd at 6 p.m.
So when you mess up, you fess up. I'm going to own this. I've had to go back and forth. Initially, we planned on August 22nd for the special meeting. And working with Stephen Parsons and looking closer at the budget, we realized that we could push that date to a regular meeting.
Okay.
But we'd already committed with the state to that August 22nd special meeting. So we're not able to backtrack. We tried to see if we could reverse that. But we are going to have to stick with our 22nd. And so we will need to do the revenue neutral rate hearing and the budget hearing, and then approve the budget on that special meeting. The upside is the mill levy is going to be reduced from what we initially thought by a point or so. And yeah, it's just we've got a working budget we're ready to bring to the board.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve that budget hearing? Okay. Can you second it? Tony seconded. Callie made the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Negotiated agreement.
So you have been given the copy of the negotiated agreement with the changes marked. At this time, we need to ratify that we are okay with that agreement, so they can be sent back to the teachers to ratify on their end. So that's the action tonight.
Any communication or questions about the negotiated agreement?
We need executive session to talk about it. Just asking.
Kelly did a great job of being there by herself on the first one. I apologize for missing that meeting, but I was impressed with the teachers this year. I really told them that in our second meeting that they had some great ideas and worked hard for it. So I move to approve the negotiated agreement. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next is approval of our Brome lease.
So we received only one bid for leasing the extra acreage at $50 per acre. It's listed for Wetzel County Fair Association. Their total bidding was $500. It's the only bid that we received.
I move to accept the bid.
A second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Electric bus proposal.
So Mr. Thompson, unfortunately, sorry, was there something?
Nope, go ahead.
Mr. Thompson, unfortunately, was not able to stay with us tonight. He was going to present some of the initial information that we have regarding the potential for securing electric buses for the district and replace our old 10-year-old plus diesel buses. Essentially what happens is this is a grant that's written for by the company that creates the buses. There's apparently $5 billion in energy funding out there that's been created by the current administration. In any case, we have to apply for it. If we're approved, we essentially receive the buses free of charge in exchange. The only out-of-cost or out-of-pocket expense for the district is to run the charging, run the electricity to a charging station from the transformer. So that's the district's output on the front end. Right now, we are researching a couple things regarding maintenance per year costs, and I'm just doing a comparative analysis of with a regular bus versus this electric bus. What's it going to cost us to maintain? Are there any hidden fees? We've been in contact with a district in Missouri that has done a large-scale flip over to these electric buses. They've done it for over a year now, so they've got a year to kind of see what the cycle is, and they revealed some of the things that they've noticed. Nothing that gives me a lot of pause at this point. What we're doing tonight is explain to you that we are going to apply for the grant. If we receive the grant, then you'll have the opportunity to review it in great detail and make a determination on whether or not the board wishes to accept the grant.
Okay.
Right now, the turnover is we are looking to replace 2 buses, 2 of our old diesel buses. So we don't want to do the entire fleet. We want to do a little bit of time and see how it works and see if we can save some money, especially with the cost of gas rising exponentially.
Be interesting to at least see some of the numbers and information.
So just know that we're running a lot of different types of evaluations to see, just do the comparison side by side so you guys can look at that.
Okay. Then moving on. I move that let's see, I move to go in executive session for 20 minutes to discuss matters which would be deemed privileged under attorney-client relationship with the board members, Dr. Pitch, and
Angie Stahlbomber.
Angie, what was the last name?
Stahlbomber.
And Angie Stahlbomber present. The meeting will resume here at 8:21. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay. Moving on now to personnel. I move to approve the employment as submitted. Monica Lopez Reese, Maple Hill Elementary School first grade teacher. Madison Bird, elementary school teacher aide. Kelsey Schoengert as a substitute teacher. Clinton Firstbrook, substitute teacher.
That was a typo,
Kelsey on that.
Peggy Adams as a substitute teacher. Orville Altavote, substitute teacher. Brent Schreiner, Laura Hannon, Valerie Spiker, Tony Shaw, Brian Boucher, and David Markley Sr., all as substitute teacher. I also, with that, approve the resignation of Krista Talley as the junior high media tech.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Dr. Ditch.
So I have just a couple quick things in my superintendent's comment. The first one was mentioned earlier, which is the CASB convention coming up with November 11th through 13th. I looked through the breakout sessions. Some of those are very interesting. If you guys have the ability and free time, I'm interested in taking my two campus principals to this conference as well. There are some things that are going to be very important for us to be discussing as an administrative team. So we get 6 for 5. So if we have 5 members, we can bring an additional 6 on with us. So if any of you are interested, this is November 11th through 13th. If you're interested and you have time available, let me know and we'll get you signed up and we'll all go together. Secondly, I want to point out that we have our staff coming back this week on Thursday and Friday. We've got professional development for all staff together, and then we turn the teams loose to their campuses for the principals to work directly with their teams to make sure they have enough time to communicate expectations and start to plan for the academic year. Last, I just want to say that it's exciting for us that we're launching this bond package. I think we can go forth in confidence and we've prepared to the best of our ability, the information, the plan, and now it's the job of us as the district, as myself as a superintendent, to market this in an extreme degree to every corner of the district, and we get the turnout that we need so that we can pass this bond for, not just for this group of students that we have, but for students for the next 20, 30 years that are going to enjoy these safe facilities that we're going to build. So I'm actually very excited about this bond project.
Jerome? Don?
I did have one thing. Would it be possible, I'm asking, would it be possible to change our time to 7 again? It'd be easier for me to make it at 7 than it is at 6 o'clock.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
To change our meeting times, when we do 7 o'clock.
So we ratified that in July.
Oh, you did?
Yes. The 6 o'clock meeting, all that's done in July.
Gotcha.
We just did that. That's the paper, that's the meeting time, that's all that was in, that was in the consent agenda in July.
That's fine.
Well, I know
Can't
we-
make it a late.
We discussed it when Brad was driving so far to get him home a little earlier, and we were going through some mini ball and stuff at that time. They were getting pretty late meetings, and so we ratified it at that time to change it. I have no problem if and when that time comes again, rediscussing it, so.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's on, I just know that's when that happened.
Kelly? Callie? Tony? So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Excited for students next week, so. I did drive through the buses over here, and things do look pretty nice, so.
And there's a shiny van over there.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So,
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Tony. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.